The film begins in a post-apocalyptic world where a former police officer named Max is trying to survive. However, he's soon attacked by a group of scavengers and he's pinned down. Even though he tries to escape, his past regrets play tricks with his mind and he is soon seized again. We also get to meet a man named Immortan Joe, who seems to be the leader of the wasteland. He pretends to be the redeemer of the poor. Later on, Joe sends his Imperator Furiosa on a mission towards the gas town, but she deviates out of the correct route. When Joe figures that out, he checks upon his wives and realizes that they are gone. When Joe and his scavengers prepare to go after her, two war boys start fighting. One of them, Nux, wants to participate in the mission, but he's weak. Despite this, he takes Max with him in order to use him as a blood bag to feed on. Meanwhile, Furiosa enters enemy territory and she and her convoy are trapped. Their enemies approach closer, but Furiosa and her allies are able to defend themselves. Nonetheless, there are more enemies closing in. Like that was not enough. Joe and his convoy are approaching as well. While the fight rages, Max is forced to endure it, and the only thing he can do is to wish for the best. Finding herself in a tough situation, Furiosa tries to escape through a sandstorm. At the same time, the scavengers decide to cut Max loose, but he survives and holds on to the vehicle. While driving through the sandstorm, Nux decides to blow his vehicle up in order to stop Furiosa. However, that would mean that Max would die as well. So he does his best to stop Nux, and he achieves it. The next day, Max wakes up under a clear sky and he seems to be fine. The first thing he wants to do is detach himself from Nux. Since he's not able to break the bond, he carries Nux with him for a little while. To his surprise, he sees Furiosa and 5 other women cleaning themselves up. He holds them at gunpoint, but the women tell him that they are not going back. Max has no intention of hurting them, but the women don't know that. After drinking some water, Max asks the woman to cut his chain. While one of them tries to cut the chain, Furiosa attacks Max and steals his gun. She even pulls the trigger, but the gun is empty. A dude's lucky day. While all of them fight, Nux wakes up and he joins the fight as well. Furiosa reaches for her gun, but Max jumps on her and defuses it. Eventually, Max gains the upper hand and he pins Furiosa down. While the scavengers are approaching, he orders Nux to give him the cutter and he cuts his chain. After all that, Max grabs the big rig and drives away, while Furiosa tells the other woman to follow her. On the other hand, Max proves to be unlucky and the truck dies. Furiosa catches up with him and tells him that she knows how to operate the vehicle. Therefore, it is in their best interest to continue this trip together. Max is having a hard time trusting Furiosa and the 5 wives of Immortan Joe, so he takes control of all the weapons in the vehicle. Suddenly, Nux makes it inside the rig, but the wives grab him and teach him a good lesson about his beliefs, moments before they throw him out. Soon they arrive to the next town where Furiosa was supposed to have a deal with the locals. However, things go sideways and the group has to use the truck to escape. While driving away, they are attacked by several bikers who perform jumps above the truck in order to bomb it. Furiosa and Max skillfully use their guns in order to evade the attackers, but they are not going to be left alone that easily. Even Nux tries to hop on the truck once more, but he trips over and fails. While the chase becomes more difficult to evade, one of the wives falls out of the truck. The other 4 women want to go back for her, but Max tells them that she unfortunately went under the wheels. They insist on going back for her, but Max is pretty sure about what he saw. Since that is the case, Furiosa supports Max and they keep moving. One of the wives goes on to check the back of the vehicle, and she finds Nux hiding there. He is very disappointed in himself because he wanted to die. He believes that if he had died in battle, he would walk through the gates of Valhalla and become immortal. That would be a much more honorable death for him compared to dying from his sickness. Later that night, the group has to face yet another obstacle when the truck gets stuck in the mud. The group has to find a way to get it unstuck while Joe and his people are catching up with them. A car is getting closer and Max grabs the sniper rifle to try and kill their lights. He fails 2 times and then hands the rifle to Furiosa while he lets her use his shoulder as a stand. Furiosa takes 1 good shot and kills the lights, buying the group some more time. In essence, that results in the enemies starting to randomly shoot at every direction. Max ties a rope around a tree while Nux gives it a couple of tries until he gets the rig unstuck from the mud. However, they now have to face a new issue and the engine dies, leaving them with no other option but to stop again. Max tells Furiosa and the group to keep moving as soon as they get the engine fixed, while he will run backwards and attack the car that has been following them. Soon Max returns to them covered in blood and carrying ammo, which means he did a good job at defeating their pursuers. The next day, Max wakes up to a nightmare that reminds him of the people he has lost. Furiosa is driving and taking the group to a town named Green Place. When they arrive at their destination, Furiosa reminds her people of who she is. She needs to be identified to not be attacked. This town is only consisted of women, so they get suspicious of Max and Nux when they see them. The bigger problem is that Furiosa realizes there is no peaceful town named Green Place. The women tell her that if she came the way she claims she came from, she should have already seen the Green Place. The Green Place was either a myth or it was destroyed. Later that night, Furiosa has a talk with Max and tells him they need to leave the truck. They will load the bikes with as much as they can, and with the fuel they have, they can ride for 160 days. Although they decide to part their ways, Max interrupts Furiosa's path the next morning. He tells her that if they want to find a paradise, the only way to go is back where they came from. They need to fight against Immortan Joe and take control of Citadel because that is the only place left where they can grow crops and have plenty of water. Even though the group believes that is a terrible idea, they also recognize that is the only way to live a fulfilling life as well as help the rest of the enslaved people. The group takes the truck back towards Citadel, and naturally, they are spotted by Joe and his men. While they are being hunted, Furiosa says they need to keep the truck running because if the enemies get in front of them, they will spike their wheels. Nux jumps on the engines and does his magic. He starts spitting gas in the engine to make the truck ride faster. However, they soon lose one of the engines, and they now have to use their gunpowder to combat the enemies face to face. Joe's men try to use their chains to cling to the truck, but Max cuts those chains one by one. The scavengers keep attacking, and they eventually make their way onto the truck. Thankfully, Max is a skillful fighter and deals with them pretty well. However, the enemies are too many and are causing them lots of trouble. Since they are kind of tied up, one of the wives gets abducted out of the truck. The next move belongs to the good guys as they manage to fix their engine and Max seizes an enemy truck. The fight continues for a while until Furiosa reaches Joe's car. She manages to grab his face and rip it off, even though she loses her mechanical hand as well. Joe's son Rictus makes an attempt to grab the wives, but he fails. Most members of the group have made it across to another vehicle, but Nux is still driving the truck. Nonetheless, he decides to sacrifice himself and go to Valhalla by tipping the truck over to block the path of the bad guys following behind. Meanwhile, Furiosa is having a hard time because she is severely injured. Max knows how to help her out, and he connects a tube to his body. Then he attaches the tube to her in order to transfer some of his blood. He used to be a blood bag after all. At last, the group makes it back to Citadel. Max presents the crowd with the dead body of Joe and kicks it to the ground. The crowd gets excited and they tear the body to pieces. Then Furiosa gets on top of the vehicle and she serves as a carrier of hope because the people know her. She is accepted by everyone, and Max leaves knowing that she will do a good job.